that stuff correctly.
Isn't
Good morning and welcome to Pathways Online. I'm Marty Kosmersky and I'll lead us through the online service today. We recommend that you set your screen to speaker mode for this service. This is Common Ground, Pathways celebration of worship for people of many paths who are gathering virtually to share in the responsible search for meaning and truth. Pathways is a warm and open community where all who come with open minds and kind hearts are welcome, regardless of ability, age, race, gender identity, or sexual orientation. If you are visiting us for the first time today, we welcome you to our virtual service and hope that you'll stick around and visit us in person when we can be together again. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. To send us a note about your visit or ask more information about Pathways, email at office@pathwaysuu.org. We hope that all who join us today find this a safe and inspiring online place to worship. Our opening song today is a 1930 hymn written by Alicia S. Carpenter and sung to a 1543 Genevan Psalter. The Genevan Psalter was created in French under the supervision of John Calvin for use by the Reformed churches of the city of Geneva in the 16th century. So if this feels old-fashioned to you, it is. Sing the words at home while you remain muted and listen to how this centuries-old hymn and 80-year-old words still work today. Our virtual chalice lighting is On Inherent Worth and Dignity by Steve Stock. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person. To reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves toward the resolution of true equality. And to share that love, which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us. And now let's read together our Unitarian Universalist sacred promises. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. Our call to worship today is by Nelson Mandela. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Kevin Kong performs Carefully Taught, a song from the Rodgers and Hammerstein movie, South Pacific. South Pacific received scrutiny for its commentary regarding relationships between different races and ethnic groups. In particular, You've Got to Be Carefully Taught was subject to widespread criticism, judged by some to be too controversial or downright inappropriate for the musical stage. How does it work in a common ground service? Think about that as you listen to Kevin Kong singing Carefully Taught.
You got to be taught to hate and fear. You got to be taught from ear to hear. It's got to be done in your dear little ear. You got to be carefully taught. You got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are rightly made, and people whose skin is a different shade. You got to be carefully taught. You got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You got to be carefully taught. You got to be carefully taught. You got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You got to be carefully taught. Got to be carefully taught.
All of us here at Pathways love our cigar-smoking, harmonica-playing friend, Glen Weber. He has led us through many interesting common ground services in the past. And today, we are so excited to welcome him back to our virtual pulpit. Today, Glen will help us learn more about another subject dear and near to his heart. Everything you ever wanted to know about anti-Semitism, but didn't know what to ask. And now, here is our one and only Glen Weber.
Thank you. This one was kind of rough, and it's not going to be, I could pretty much guarantee it's not going to be a very fun service. There's a lot here in my research that I didn't know, and honestly, it infuriates me. So let's start with the picture on this slide. As you can see, those are just some of the horrible images through time we've seen about what Jews are supposed to be. Apparently, I'm supposed to be some slimy, rat-like, sleazy, money-grabbing, horrific person who's trying to take over the world. There are all kinds of conspiracies, and these conspiracies have remained true over the years. It's what caused Nazi Germany, and it goes back hundreds, thousands of years, and it holds true today. As you can see in the middle there, that's an actual picture of tombstones having swastikas painted on them. There's a lot of that. Actually, a lot more of that is popping up in Europe, in places we wouldn't expect, like Germany. There were incidences there were incidences, I'm sure this is still going on somewhere, but recently in Paris, in some of the malls, there were swastikas painted on the walls, people just walking by them like it's nothing. So you think about World War II, Nazi Germany, and everything's fine now. It's not fine. It's horrible, and we'll get into it. But there's going to be some shocking things on here, things that surprise me too. And just want to start off with one just to get your attention here. Next slide, please. This shocked me. I'm a big fan of John Cusack. I was, and his sister. And you got to wonder, were they brought up with this in their family? Why would this guy pass this out? This came over on Twitter, and it wasn't up there long. And look at his excuse. He said, "A bot got me. I thought I was endorsing a pro-Palestine justice retweet of an earlier post, and I came to think differently." Nonsense. You look down, he says, "Follow the money." How do you make a mistake and then basically sign your name to it? Look at that image. It's disgusting. What we'll find as we go on here is that is very, very, very common. That is not, he's not the only celebrity. He's not the only prominent person that we know that we would never expect this from, who has made a statement like this. And I honestly probably see it in my face. Every time I look at this, every time I go through it, it makes me angry. And, I've always been a proponent of not having to represent your own ethnic group, your own religion, your own background to make a statement. And I wouldn't mind if someone else presented this and did their research and was enlightened by it. I don't think that we should only be proponents of our own background, but when I see something like this, I feel like I have to. Next slide, please. This is eye-opening for me. The population in the US, well, this part I know, 5.7 million. There are about 20 million Jews in the world, give or take a couple of million, depending on how you look at it, because there are also a lot of Jewish people that don't identify as being Jews, but were born Jews. There are also people who have one Jewish parent. We're still Jewish. We're one of the few ethnic groups that are based on religion. You're born Jewish, you're Jewish forever. It's good and bad. But when you look at the breakdown, and I did a breakdown of states, there are 2 million in New York, 170,000 Jews in the entire state of Texas. That kind of surprised me because I know there's a condensed population in some of the big cities like Dallas has 45,000, and those are primarily Orthodox Jews. There's a nice big Orthodox Jewish community in downtown Dallas. It's why I think that I really needed to make this presentation of Pathways. Now, granted, Pathways is much more, as Unitarians are, much more open-minded, probably more diverse than most of the population, and I'm sure that we're more educated on these matters. But I can't help to feel that there's still a lot of people there, based on conversations, or a lot of people here, that I might be the only Jewish person you ever met. No matter how much you know about the culture, I'm the representative, or you knew a few other people but didn't know them as well as me. So if I offend anybody by assuming you don't know something, I apologize. But at this point, I kind of have to, because the awareness is a lot less than I thought it was. Next slide. Okay, well, everybody's familiar with the Holocaust. This is a very mild picture. We easily could have gone all out and shown bodies being emaciated bodies, bones sticking out, dead bodies being bulldozed into pits by the hundreds. Could have shown people who were near death in the same kind of picture, but I don't know how appropriate that is. I would recommend, if you're not aware of the extent of the Holocaust, maybe do a Google search, look up Camp Auschwitz, just look up anything you can about the Holocaust, but be prepared, because it's horrific. Children were slaughtered, women and children, 6 million. If you don't know, 6 million Jews were killed. That's a horrific number. 20 million Jews in the world right now. I think there were 22 or 24 million back then. That high of a percentage was eliminated from the world. They did experiments like they would do on lab rats, surgery with no anesthesia, all kinds of horrible things. They used us as lab rats. There were Nazis who enjoyed torturing other human beings and gassing children by the hundreds, thousands. A lot of people don't know what happened there, and shockingly, a lot of people don't know how many Jews were killed in the Holocaust. I do have numbers on this, if I can find them, but and it's 11% of people surveyed do not think that the Holocaust never happened, and 63% did not know if it was 6 million that were killed. I think it was 30% believe that it was under 2 million or less. Yeah, that's give or take 4 million, right? It's a very significant number, and it should be known. And it isn't, because I don't know what we're teaching. My wife grew up in Taiwan, and I just found out she didn't know there was 6 million. She's married to me for 30 some odd years, and we're together since 1983. We never had that discussion, because I always assumed the whole world knew. The whole world doesn't know. So it's very hard just to get past the Holocaust, but I'm going to try and talk about other things. Next slide, please.
This one or the next one?
No, perfect. Oh, we already on that? I guess I covered it. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and there's a whole lot of prominent people here who you wouldn't know, or tremendous anti-Semites. You probably all know about Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was stopped, and he's made several comments, but the most famous one is he was stopped for a DWI. And when he addressed the police, he called them an effing Jew. He said, "The Jews are responsible for all wars in history. Are you a Jew?" That actually got a lot of attention. And he said other things. When that guy drinks, his personality comes out. He's horrible. And that bothered me. I love him as an actor. I saw a lot of his movies, and he seemed sincere. Well, he's an actor. He's not. So there's Mel Gibson, and he probably got the most blame of anybody for his words. It was highly publicized. But you know what? His career is just as good as it was. He just won an award in 2017. All's forgiven. It blows my mind. If people make other types of comments, they're not forgiven as easily as he was. But it's just Jews. It's okay. Henry Ford, I think a lot of people do know about Henry Ford. He was very vocal, and he complimented Hitler on a number of occasions. and he complimented Mein Kampf. He thought Mein Kampf was a wonderful work of art. And oh, there's one I forgot. Charles Lindbergh. I don't know how many people are familiar with Charles Lindbergh. He was an American hero, pilot, flew around the world. And he challenged our government back in World War II and told them that we're making a mistake. We should be working with Hitler, not fighting him. He's made a lot of other, he made some pro-Hitler comments, disgusting. And here's a guy that I'm finding nobody knows his history. Those two pictures are Al Sharpton. Growing up in New York City, I remember in the 1980s and into the 90s what kind of person Al Sharpton really is. The guy on the left is the real Al Sharpton. He was famous for race baiting. If you want, I may mention some of these things. I think you should do a Google search for Al Sharpton, anti-Semitic comments, or Al Sharpton, even better, Tawana Broly, just to give you a character of this guy. He incited riots in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, back in the 80s. Crown Heights is a very racially tense part of Brooklyn. There were Orthodox Jews and there were African Americans, and there was a lot of friction. Sharpton used that to his advantage. He was an opportunist. He wasn't yet a politician. He called himself an activist. He incited a terrible riot. There was an incident there, I forget the year, but some 7-year-old, I'm trying to remember his name, some 7-year-old kid ran out into the street and got accidentally hit by an Orthodox Jewish man. It was a terrible tragedy. The guy was devastated, and it drew a mob. Al Sharpton incited a riot to the point where some poor innocent Orthodox Jewish man, young man, he was a graduate student, Yanko Rosenbaum, was walking home. And he got attacked and stabbed to death to chance of kill the Jew. Al Sharpton has been blamed for that. Martin Luther King's wife called Al Sharpton out a few times for his cheap comments about Jews. So this is a guy who's now, I don't know how, but he's a prominent politician. I have seen Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, rub elbows with him for votes. And sorry, I mean, I know his message is different now. They did a facelift for him to make him a prominent politician, but it's horrible. These kind of things are just passed over and we move on. Okay, next slide, please. This is another one that really shocked me. I'm a fan. I watched 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street with my daughter. I don't really know his music as an artist, but the guy's hilarious. And he's always angry. He was perfect for the roles that I saw him play. Well, apparently he really is angry. And look at this image. Look at it closely. All we have to do is stand up. More conspiracy theories. He's blaming Jews for pretty much anything that happens these days to the African American community, which is wrong, completely wrong, and it's disgusting. My blood boils when I see this stuff. It really does, especially people that we really don't expect it from. Next slide. Louis Farrakhan. I think Louis Farrakhan is one of the most dangerous people in the world and has been for years. And I believe that he's largely responsible for some of the attitudes that I'm talking about now, especially within the African-American community. He has referred to Jews as the devil. He has suggested on several occasions that Jews should be killed. He said Hitler was a great man. This guy has millions of followers. This guy's retweeted by people. He's quoted by people. Even Chelsea Handler. Chelsea Handler is a Jewish comedian. Chelsea Handler quoted him. Madonna quoted him. This is a serious problem. Nobody's paying attention to this. It's a prime example of the definition of anti-Semitism. It's quiet. Nobody notices. And my theory is nobody notices, and from what people have told me, well, you guys are white, you're rich, who cares? I'm not rich. Look at me. Jews are not just a bunch of rich people plotting against the world. We're salespeople. We're musicians. We run stores. We work for people. We're like everybody else. But this has been a theme throughout time, and these stereotypes remain intact, and they're getting worse now. And that's because people let them. Remember, there are not that many of us in the world. You don't see a lot of special interest groups. You don't see a lot of marches. And honestly, very few people speak out when they hear comments like that. There were a couple of basketball players last year, Steven Jackson and Deshaun Jackson. And they went that route. Jews are taking over the world, the same old stuff. And it got out of hand. They took a little criticism. And finally, if we go to the next slide, please. The only people, these guys are the only people to really speak up in the sports world. That man on the right, if you don't know him, that's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. One of my favorite players all time, great guy. He was originally called Lou Alcindor. That was his given name. He went the same route Muhammad Ali did. He found Islam, and he's been very devoted to his religion, very peaceful man. He was outraged. He said he could not understand why nobody's speaking out. There are very few voices, and this has to stop. He actually got ridiculed by a few people. So, and this was last year, Charles Barkley stood up, and Charles Barkley said, how come nobody's listening to Kareem? These two guys, I love both of them. I'm big fans of both of them. Sir Charles is outspoken. He says whatever he wants, and it bothers a lot of people. And Kareem is Kareem. But why does the sports world have to rely on these people to be the loudest voices denouncing this kind of hate? And you can see I get angry when I talk about this. It's very, very disturbing. Very disturbing. So that brings us to the next slide. I don't know, some people see Ilhan Omar's picture up there, and you're all ready to defend her. You're like, because I've heard this before. People telling me that I don't understand anti-Semitism, and she just doesn't like Israel, and she's right. But we'll get into that in a little bit. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, I know everybody was thinking this is going to be a Trump and right-wing attack, or me attacking them for being the cause of anti-Semitism in the world right now. They're a big part of it, but they are not the whole cause. Let me get into this. Here's my theory. Right now, you've got on the right wing, you got Trump. When you think about it, Trump has never, I should say never, I can't think of any direct anti-Semitic comments he makes. And I think it's by design. This is my theory. This is my conspiracy theory. He has people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who are going to minimize the Holocaust. She did it once. She talked about, I think it was first she talked about masks, and it's like a Nazi party because they're being forced to wear masks. She knew what she was doing. She's not as dumb as she appears to be, because that's impossible. They're sending a message. Again, my theory alone, they're sending a message to white supremacist America that they're with them. They're not making a blatant anti-Semitic statement, but if it was just one, I would say it's stupidity. She then apologizes and goes to the Holocaust Museum and says how terrible it was. 2 weeks later, she picked a term which she probably learned at the Holocaust Museum about brown coats. She's doing it again. She's, I believe, again, sending a message out there without making a direct anti-Semitic comment, because politically they could say, oh, we're not anti-Semites, the Democrats are. I really don't like getting political, but this has been bothering me for a very long time. And I'm running into problems with other Jewish people who follow them, who put on blinders because they want to believe in this cult that they're following. She's part of the QAnon cult. The QAnon cult is, I think most of us know about it, but I saw a documentary on the QAnon cult, and it's from a year ago, and they're estimating there are 45 million Americans that are part of this, probably more since a year passed. But Part of the QAnon cult is based on, again, the stereotype, Jews controlling the world. She made her comment about Jews shooting lasers from space at California and starting the wildfires. People follow her. People look up to her. People listen to this, and a lot more people than we would want to believe. So we've got that going on with her too. With her party, I'm sorry to say it, but they are turning into the QAnon party. That party has their own militias. Trump has his own militias. And this is, I almost included a picture of this. I recommend Googling it because it's hard to believe if you haven't heard about this. There were pictures at rallies with the Proud Boys wearing, one of them was wearing a shirt that said Camp Auschwitz. Another one was caught with a shirt that said XMWE. 6 million wasn't enough. It's sold on Amazon. From what I read, 1,000 of those shirts sold on Amazon. 1,000 before Amazon pulled it down. And it said, again, 6 million wasn't enough. How does it get by with the whole country not knowing about it? But it did. All right. Let me go to Ilhan Omar. You're walking a very, very tight line, a very tiny tightrope, and it's very dangerous when you attack Israel and use these hateful comments, these hateful stereotypes in an effort to do it. Ilhan Omar has made several comments over the years. One of them was that Israel, which you may as well say Jews, because that's the message, I believe, are hypnotizing the world. And it's about the Benjamins. It's all about money. Those are the stereotypes. Even if she's not intentionally doing it and she's not intelligent, which I know is not the case, she's a very intelligent woman, she wouldn't keep making those comments over and over again. And there have been several of them. That keeps the stereotypes alive. And as we see with some of the people I was mentioning in Hollywood, Hollywood is for the most part liberal America. Liberal America is buying into a whole lot that they never used to. We used to joke about how Jews are blindly liberal. Growing up, we were all liberal. We're all Democrats. You had a hard time finding someone that wasn't a Democrat who was Jewish. My father's father, my grandfather, according to my father, was the only Republican in the entire Bronx, especially the only Jewish Republican in the entire Bronx, and everyone made fun of him. Obviously, it was very different then. I wish I knew him. He passed away before I died. He passed away before I was, I think, like a year old. So I never really knew him, but he was the unusual one. Now, the last number I looked at, it's 60-40 or 70-30. It depends on what survey you look at. That may not sound bad to everyone else, but if liberal America doesn't call out people, if liberal America supports even the smallest bit of this mentality, we're in a lot of trouble. And I think that's where a lot of the incremental hate has come from. There's nobody protecting the Jewish community anymore. And it's a very, very, very scary thing. So let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, this is about 15 months of data. 8,000 incidents of extremism, anti-Semitism in the US. Think about that. How many Jewish people are there in the US? And how many hate crimes are there? There hasn't been anything like this in my lifetime. And it's been going up continuously every year for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years. And we are not number one. America is number one. Yay, right? America is number one for this type of hate. It's very, really, it's disturbing. And what I saw is, believe it or not, Germany's number 2. So much for them completely changing. I know they made a lot of efforts, but anti-Semitism is a very hard thing to stop. It's different from other forms of hate because it's silent. It's silent until it gets to the point where there's no turning back. And that's what happened 70 years ago. It's happened throughout time. And I'm very, very, very concerned that it's going to happen again. Now look at the concentration there. There's plenty in Texas, which there aren't many of us in Texas, yet there are still all these hate crimes. People are believing myths, they're believing the images. They're believing people like John Cusack and all these other people that I'm mentioning. You know, another honorable mention to a couple of people I forgot to talk about. Roger Waters hurts me a lot. I'm a huge fan. He's a different guy than he used to be. It started off with Israel, and it turned into full-blown anti-Semitism to the point where he is no longer allowed to the Holocaust Museum. I'm just kind of going off the cuff here, but Walt Disney, a lot of information on him. He's on the fence because I'm not sure you could really prove it. He hung out with the wrong people. He made a couple of comments, but he also did some good things. But yeah, there is a lot in our past, a lot in our history that we're just not aware of. So, Nick Cannon is another one. I forgot to mention Nick Cannon. I don't know, honestly, I don't really know who he is. I got an idea, but I'm not all that familiar with him until I saw his comments. He called Jews wicked. He called us evil. And he said that, yeah, he called us wicked and evil and a whole bunch of it was just horrific. Then he said, I'm telling the truth. People hate me because I'm telling the truth. That was his first pushback. Since then, he's gone a long way to apologize. He's done some things. He's done some outreach. I think he's sincere, but why does it have to come to that? And why do people have to be pushed? And is he sincere because he feels bad that people don't like him? Is he sincere because he fully had his mind changed? I don't know. We may never know the answer to that. You know, and other things that just went unnoticed. I think it was 2005, Prince Harry dressed as a Nazi at a costume party. Why would you do that? And why would it get such little mention? There's a lot of anti-Semitism in Europe. There always has been. That's the representative of the UK. Just blows my mind. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, let's go to the next slide. I think a lot comes down to this. Martin Luther King said that Martin Luther King was a big, big supporter and proponent of Jewish people. He understood Zionism. He understood passion for Israel. These days, it's very important to distinguish the difference between what people consider extremism, what people consider Zionists, and there's a lot of hatred for the word Zionism. Zionists are people who are passionate about Israel and passionate about being Jewish and see the two as one and the same. There's been a lot of question about what that means. I'm not too thrilled with what I know. I'm not too thrilled about what goes on with the Israeli government, but I don't know enough. And after doing this, I really want to do more research, but I've heard both sides of it. And when people try and justify to me anti-Semitism or comments that someone like Ilhan Omar makes by ripping Israel and talking about the unrest in Palestine and how it's all Israel's fault, maybe, again, I've heard the other side too. I know people who visit Israel. I know people who've lived there. And they say it's absolutely not true. It's propaganda. It's the same as always. We're being attacked. We wait and then we defend ourselves. I'm not so sure. So that is my project to look more into it. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Israeli government and whatever unrest is going on there, whoever's fault it is, has nothing or little to do with anti-Semitism and hate for Jews, especially in this country, and it has to stop. People have to stop making excuses for politicians, making excuses and citing sociological reasons for other minorities taking aim at Jews. There have been physical attacks in New York City. I saw videos. Those aren't Trump supporters that I saw beating up Jewish people, and while we're at it, beating up Asian people. This is a lot of it's coming from liberal America. I'm sorry to say, I think being silent and pointing a finger at a government and blaming Jews, because that's how it goes down. If you're not from a heavily populated area, you don't really know too many Jewish people, and there are a lot of myths out there, and people are going to believe it's one and the same. I think Sarah Silverman was talking about it. She said she was getting death threats ever since it's been going on with the Palestinians and Israel, especially recently. She said she's getting death threats for being Jewish. She's a comedian. She's a Jewish comedian. She's not Israeli. I don't think she's ever supported any of that. It doesn't matter. Martin Luther King was right. If you're going to hate Zionists, you're going to hate people who are passionate about the religion, the culture, and the homeland, the religious homeland. You got to really rethink it, because it is anti-Semitism, and it is dangerous. Again, it is different from other forms of ethnic hate. It is a religion tied into an ethnic group. And, it's to say you got all the same properties that you have of other hate crimes and hate and ethnic hate and racism. You have caricatures of people. You have these stories of horrible things that these people do, and then you find one person you don't like, and then the entire civilization is just like them. So can the Holocaust happen again? Yeah, it can. At 6 million, probably not. I wouldn't want to say that definitively, but everybody's got a cell phone with a camera on it. Back then, there was no real media. There was movies. There wasn't even TV. The whole world's watching. Can it happen in America? A lot can happen in America. A lot of people can get killed. A lot of different people are being killed here. There's a lot going on. But when our politicians don't denounce it, instead of thoughts and prayers, which is what we're used to hearing when no one takes real action. AOC, my God, AOC, comparing, what's going on with DACA. I think that's what it was. It's concentration camps. Google search. Look at what concentration camps were. Don't compare that to Nazi Germany. How dare you? That really, really pissed me off. Excuse my language. And no one cared. Very few people said anything about it. That is horrible. I mean, it was just on her part stupid. I don't think she's so bright sometimes. It was very stupid, and people rallied around her saying she didn't mean it. You can't make those comments. And once you do, it's too late. Even if you apologize, it's been made. What she did is she minimized the Holocaust. And the fact that most people, younger people under 40, don't really know much about it. Like I said, 11% of the population, 40 and under, believe that it never happened. And there's a percentage of people that believe that Jews made the Holocaust happen. And I think that's actually more than 11%. It's sick. And what do we need to do? Now, it's kind of hard to say. There's no real action we could take other than educating ourselves and educating others. Because what else are you going to do? You can't stop people from thinking the way they do. You can only educate them. And I really do believe, since there are very few Jews in the world, in this part of the country, people really, really need to understand. I wish I could say just meet as many other Jewish people besides me as you can. And I say that for everyone. If you meet as many different types of people as you can before you understand them. And I know nobody here believes in any of the myths, of course. Unitarians, we don't think like that. And obviously, Jews don't typically think like that about anybody. The idea, I've been told that I killed Jesus many times. I've never been, and before I end this, I've got to say, I have never been a real victim of anti-Semitism. I've been kind of sheltered. I grew up in a neighborhood that was at least 50% Jewish. I thought the whole world was either Jewish or Catholic, and I thought it was close. So I didn't know until later on when I grew up what a huge minority we are. So it wasn't really a big issue for me. I don't want to be like the proponent for anti-Semitism. I didn't even want to talk about this, but I felt I had to. So again, I think really what it comes down to is like any other form of hate, educate yourself, educate others. If you have a political conversation with someone and they take the "we hate Israel" part over the top and start with the stereotypes, it's about money. They're trying to control the world. You can't talk against them. Those are the common things I hear, even with rational conversations. And I've also heard, I have a very good friend who made the same comment. And this is a comment that Trump made recently. Hitler did some good things. Think about how disgusting that is. Hitler did some good things. Trump said that. That was in one of those biographies about him. He said the Jews did some good things. Now, it's alleged because I don't think they had it on audio, but who doubts he'd say something like that? I don't. And then I had a friend say it to me. It came out of left field. He was joking. You don't joke like that, but it came from somewhere. It's a friend of mine that, and he's still a friend because I just think it was dumb, and I know the way he was brought up. He was brought up out in the middle of nowhere in Texas. I'm the first Jewish person he met. He doesn't really believe that, but he was taught to say it. So he said it. We haven't talked for a while. Anyway, that's really the gist of it. If we have time for a conversation afterwards, I will be here. But one request I have, please don't start talking politics for Israel. That's not my intent right now, and I don't think I can control my anger when people try to use that as leverage for what's going on and leverage for one of the political parties that they support. You cannot just blindly support anyone, especially in politics, without understanding what it means to people, who it hurts, and the potential damage that it does. So thanks for listening. I wasn't sure how angry I'd get. I wasn't sure how emotional I'd get. And I got to say, I'm really, really happy that this presentation's over, because this was very rough for me. It was very hard. But do your Google searches if you want to know more. There's a lot out there, and if you want help, just talk to me. But I assure you it's not pleasant. And the images are very unpleasant. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Glenn. Please stick around after the service for more discussion about anti-Semitism. Our virtual chalice extinguishing today was written by Laura Lynn Bellamy. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem is a traditional song sung by Jews every Friday night upon returning home from synagogue prayer. And now, with your mics remaining on mute, enjoy and sing along at home. Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, Hevenu Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom aleichem. Eveinu shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. Shalom aleichem. Shalom.
We hope that each of you on your individual path through joys and questions of life found some common ground with your virtual travelers today. Every Sunday is new and different at Pathways. We hope you will join us for Common Ground Weekly. Our benediction today, principles and purposes for all of us, adapted from the UUA Principles and Purposes. We believe that each and every person is important. We believe that all people should be treated fairly. We believe that our churches are places where all people are accepted and where we keep on learning together. We believe that each person must be free to search for what is true and right in life. We believe that all people should have a voice and a vote about the things that concern them. We believe we should work for a peaceful, fair, and free world. We believe that we should care for our planet Earth. Be kind, go in peace. And so ends today's service. Thank you so much, Glen. We are all better informed now. Please feel free to unmute and stick around and visit for a bit. Our small groups will start at 11:30.